Good morning! I trust you are having a marvelous day and everyone is being absolutely fabulous. Today we have a bit of an ugly duckling on the bench, but when I saw this watch for sale, I absolutely had to buy it. But why, you ask? Why would you want this particular small, battered watch? I will tell you. Not only is this watch waterproof and anti-magnetic, it is unbreakable against accidental dropping. According to Everite, this watch cannot be broken by dropping. That is quite a claim. Here's the plan. We open the watch, give it a service, drop test the watch to an unreasonable extent, discover the lost secrets that once made watches unbreakable, sell these back to a large Swiss watch group, and this time next year we're all millionaires. This back is really locked down tight. I guess they're trying to keep the secrets within safe from unauthorized access. Now at last we find what mysteries from the lost ancient horological arts await our eye. We're in. Here it is. It's an Shield 984. A perfectly okay but unexceptional movement from the 40s and 50s. We find ourselves in a bit of a boondoggle. I'm sure the fine gentlemen and ladies in Everite's marketing department were scrupulously honest in their claims. We need to dig more. How deep does this rabbit hole go? Let's get this out of the case and take a closer look. Maybe this movement ring gives some shock protection, but I'm far from sure it does. As I mentioned earlier, this watch is branded Everite, which was a brand created by the jeweler H. Samuel in the 1940s to sell Swiss watches. They didn't muck around when creating brand names in those days, instead of paying consultants to spend 3 months to come up with a name that evokes a watch forever showing the right time. Just call it Everite and straight down the pub for an early lunch. We'll let the power down first. All learning watchmakers forget to do this once. The excitement of an exploding barrel bridge helps the memory thereafter. The balance stopping is a good sign. The power is out. Now we can remove the balance to keep it safe. Over to the keyless and motion work. Start with removing the cannon pinion. The setting lever spring is next. This helps the crown to click into position when moving between winding and hand setting, and acts as a cover for some parts too. It's also one of the most commonly broken parts on vintage watches due to metal fatigue just here. Now the rest of the motion and keyless works. If anyone spots anything that looks unusually unbreakable, please do leave a comment. Crown wheel screw is nearly always, but not always, reverse threaded, worth being a little tentative with this. And now the ratchet wheel screw, that feels like it's tightening. It is. This one is reverse threaded too. This is found on something like 1 in 20 vintage movements. A little booby trap. No idea why it's reverse threaded. If anyone knows, please do share. Nearly ready to take the barrel bridge off. We'll just remove the setting lever and the last bridge screw that I nearly missed. The train of wheels bridge can go now. On this movement, all the main bridge screws are the same length. This isn't always the case. This is all looking pretty clean. Can't really see why the amplitude was so low, at around 120 degrees. The disassembly is flying by, but in reality each part is closely inspected. While checking every gear tooth, pinion leaf and pivot is an essential part of servicing a watch, it doesn't make for the most interesting viewing experience, so we won't show that part. This springiness has clearly sprung. It's actually not easy to get out. It's happy to stay coiled up. We'll definitely have to replace it. I was hoping to avoid doing that given that we're doing ridiculous drop tests on this watch. Immediately it is back together. We'll put the balance back onto the main plate. It's the best place for it when the parts go into the cleaning machine. We'll also remove the balance jewels and clean those manually. This has the added benefit of allowing the balance pivots free access to the cleaning solution. A little puff to check the balance wheel pivots are correctly located before tightening down the balance cock. We'll use a watchmaker's special stick to guard the back of the shock spring as it's opened. In theory, these are captive and should stay in place. In practice, they often find a way to escape. The cap jewel and shatten can be lifted out with tweezers, but a watchmaker's special stick with Rodico is much safer. On closing, we pay close attention to the hinge side and don't use any force. Any energy put into these springs gets multiplied by 10 and is released in an instant as they ping off to the dark realms. The classical laws of energy conservation and momentum do not apply to watch parts. Everything goes into the cleaning machine for about 20 minutes. While the cleaning machine is doing its thing, let's put a drop of oil on the capstones. The jewels for the top and bottom pivots are often different sizes. We mustn't mix them up. On each of these videos, no matter how silly they are, I try and add a top tip for fellow tinkerers. Today's is where the setting lever is held in place with a screw. Make this the first thing you do during assembly. If you leave this until you're putting the keyless works and it's so easy to cross-thread, have parts fall out, or even damage the movement, do it first and all these issues are gone. The escape wheel's job is to provide kicks of power to the pallet fork in discrete energy quanta. Without the escape wheel, time would happen all at once. Fourth wheel, as you remember, is the one the second hand sits on. In a Disney movie, the third wheel would be an orphan that overcomes adversity to become an escape wheel. But we should respect the third wheel just as it is. It does an important job passing power to the fourth wheel. The second wheel goes right through the main plate and holds the cannon pinion that the minute hand sits on. We'll pop the new mainspring in. Focus on the outside coil and the rest of the mainspring will follow. The final loop on replacement mainsprings are often not the right size for the arbor. If too small, a pair of strong carbon steel tweezers can be employed to hold the spring open while the arbor is fitted. I don't know about you, but I'm very worried. I've not seen any part of this watch that looks particularly unbreakable. I'm starting to doubt the ladies and gentlemen of Everite. I hope I'm wrong, but that's how it appears from here. The concern is that when this watch was made, there were very few rules regarding the claims manufacturers and retailers could make. Terms such as waterproof, shockproof, unbreakable were carelessly made because there was no legal penalty for such chicanery or charlatanism. Look at that! Another train wheel bridge just dropped into place first go. I'm having an extraordinary run of luck with these. It's important not to get overconfident and drop one's guard, though. The abyss awaits, always hungry and never satisfied. Pallet fork next. The pallet fork takes the power that's been passed from the person winding the watch through the main spring, through the wheels, and serves it as minutely small impulses to the balance wheel, giving it just enough energy to make up for what's lost to friction on each oscillation. Fitting the barrel bridge is a lot easier than the train of wheels bridge, and there aren't the really delicate pivots to worry about. Crown wheel, I'm sure we all remembered it's a reverse threaded screw. click spring next. Watchmaker's special stick is deployed to protect against any flying spring shenanigans. Little bit of fiddling around to get the spring under the click, and we're done. Ratchet wheel can be fitted, unusually reverse threaded too. We'll put some power into the main spring and fit the balance to confirm what we've done so far seems to be okay. I recall most vividly my grandfather telling me, "Remember this, boy, when lubricating watches, less is more, unless you apply too little, in which case less is not enough, but it's very easy to overdo it, so best to stick with less is more." He was a confusing man. Looking good over the keyless and motion works. The vast majority of watches haven't had keys to wind and set them for well over 100 years. I do like the way watchmakers seem to be still excited by this innovation by continuing to call it keyless works. It's as if we still call cars horseless carriages. Cannon pinion is pushed onto the second wheel pivot. Now we'll plot the clutch and then winding pinion into place. Insert the stem yoke spring, setting lever spring to complete the keyless works, then minute wheel, intermediate wheel, hour wheel, and whatnot to complete the motion work. We'll get the dial and hands on before putting this unbreakable movement back into its case, then out to the garden to test this frankly outlandish claim that a watch made over 70 years ago is immune to damage by dropping. But before we do anything, let's see how well we're running now. Big improvement all round. Much of that will be due to the new mainspring, and in a vertical position, that's not bad at all for an old watch. The movement did look in good condition, so not at all surprising. Now that we've nursed this watch back to tip-top health, let's do something ridiculous to it. They did say unbreakable by dropping, didn't they? Let's go a little higher. 100 meters should be just the ticket. At this height, the watch will be traveling at 100 miles an hour when it returns to Earth. Meters and miles, I know. Us British are a strange lot. May we have the warning honker, please? And drop. Family and acquaintances have voiced some concerns about me always wearing finger cots. But when a watchmaking emergency arrives, there are people who can get ready, and there are people who are ready, and I know which of those I want to be. Is it? Yes, it is still running. Speaking frankly, I was personally very dubious about these unbreakable claims made by Everite, but I was mistaken. Those, ladies and gentlemen, were paragons of honesty and accuracy. Please accept my personal apology.